Welcome back to the Essence of the Soul.
A safe haven for all souls.
My name is Linda.
And my name is Paris, and welcome to episode 6. Today we're going to be talking about the ego versus the higher self.
Yeah, welcome back. If you're new here, thanks for joining us. We hope that you like this content, subscribe, and follow. We talk a lot about spirituality, self-development, and just all the fun things that will help you expand your mind and your subconscious. And if you're coming back, thanks for joining us again, and let's dive right into it.
Yes. Okay, so the lower self, which is ultimately the ego versus the higher self. This is basically something that a lot of people get confused by. But I will say, yes, the lower self is the ego, the thinker, the chooser, the doer. Ultimately, it's the judge, the emotional feeler, and your personality that you can sometimes be unconscious of. Mm-hmm. It's the self-cherishing I, or the me. So if you're always kind of thinking about me. It's always about, what is going on in my head and what do I think and how can I be right? So that's kind of like the ego. Ultimately, though, the lower self is very dependent on the higher self. So what I mean by this is that we honestly wouldn't even know that there's this lower self ego if it weren't for the light of the higher self, which is ultimately your true self. It's the highest, most pure sense of consciousness that your higher self can have. It's pristine awareness. It's knowing that, I am aware of my actions, reactions, the way that I respond, things like that, and it's beyond the physical mind. So the higher self, like I said, yes, is your true self. It's the real self, the inner self. Ultimately, the higher self is us, but in the
best version possible.
Yes, the best
with no shadows.
version. The essence of your soul, right?
Yeah.
It's the core essence of your very existence, ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
So it is the omniscient awareness of the infinite field of consciousness. And the ego kind of fluctuates between these sort of emotions or feelings that we have. So, in moments of like happiness, generosity, selfishness, anger, sadness, our ego fluctuates. It's because whatever feeling we are feeling, it kind of goes into, our ego kind of develops through those feelings. So if we're happy, we might be overachievers, right? Like we think too hard about ourselves, or we're too hard on, our accomplishments, or we kind of brag about ourselves, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's just one of those examples. But, and then also being angry, right? We say things that sometimes we don't mean. That is also coming from the ego as well. So the lower self I like to think of is basically it's the illusion. It's an illusion. It's temporary. It doesn't really exist, but here on the earth realm, it does exist for reasons, that sometimes we are not conscious about. But we all have an ego here, no matter how spiritual, no matter how deep or, empathetic of a person you are, we all have an ego here on earth. And it's about taming that ego. So with that, like I said, without the light of the higher self, we wouldn't even know that the ego was there. So once you can see your own truth within, and you kind of like balance your own level of consciousness and your awareness, then that's how you can kind of know that you're starting to follow your higher self in the path that you're meant to go. So that's kind of what I have with that.
I like that. I really like how you mentioned how the ego is all about I, myself, and me, because that's exactly what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Ego is the Latin word for I. So this already in itself explains like what ego is. It has everything to do with you and how your psyche, your experiences, the outside world, and how you react to it and how you perceive it. It's all about this self-centered perception. It's like all about you, where you don't really consider your surroundings or the people around you. And that's why, when people talk about ego, that's usually what they refer it to as well.
Yeah.
It doesn't really acknowledge how we are connected to everything around us. And it's important to acknowledge that your ego can be used for good or bad. Essentially the ego was created for humans as a self-defensive mechanism to protect you from, the outside world, from threat or harm. It's kind of like, it dated back to like when we were back in the caveman era, where we needed this mechanism in order to identify, okay, like when this happens, I need to fight or flight.
Right.
And that's what it is for. It's protecting yourself from being vulnerable or even shame, danger, or threat. But this can also prevent us from being authentic, and that really takes away from our resiliency. It's basically trying to protect ourselves from being imperfect. But the truth is, as humans, we're not perfect. And that's why it's important to tame your ego so that you don't live a life of not being authentic and true to yourself, like you mentioned, your true self, your higher self. It also takes away from us being able to take risks in life because we want to be safe. And, taking risks involves being vulnerable too.
Yeah.
And so, some things in life you do have to take risks in order to receive like the best outcomes too. The bigger the risk, the bigger the gift or the gain too, is kind of what they say.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think we can kind of dive into like our own personal experiences of how we've dealt with our egos and how our ego has shown up in our daily lives and how we were able to tame that too.
Yeah.
I guess I'll just share a little bit about my experience with my ego. So growing up, I didn't even really know this was considered my ego until like I did more self-reflection and I matured a little bit and I was old enough to understand what an ego was. But my ego was, always feeling the need to be right.
Yeah.
I think this kind of stemmed from like, childhood of, being judged or being like looked down upon for not knowing things or like, being incorrect about small little things. And so over time being like, thrown under the bus multiple times, my ego started to, protect myself by making myself defend myself and needing to be right against what I believed in or whatever I was going through at the time. And ultimately this became kind of toxic because, it's like, oh, if I don't get myself across or I don't prove that I'm right, then I feel like I have lost or it's not like right. The ego always wants to win or lose too. And that's kind of how I felt.
Yeah, at the same time, it creates so much conflict and arguments, and the other party's looking at you like, oh my God, like, why do you always have to be right? And why do you have to, like, get your point across so hard? Like, I'm just trying to tell you a point. Sometimes we don't recognize our own reactions. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And so when I started coming across those type of like conflicts in my life where like people did kind of put me in check, like, hey, like it's okay to be wrong sometimes, you don't have to always be right. I was like, you're right. But in that moment I didn't feel that way. Okay.
Right, yeah, of course.
And so like, yeah, I guess as you mature you have to like kind of tame your ego and realize it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to not be perfect. It's okay not to know everything.
Yeah.
Because that's part of learning.
Yes, for sure. And having the perfectionist type of personality, oh, I know a lot of us have that. It's
Yes.
definitely a part of our egos too. And I will say, beauty is in the eye of the beholder and perfection does not exist. And that's the truth. But that's kind of what us as humans that we always think about like 24/7 is, I'm right about this and so didn't agree with me, right? And I will say too that I definitely struggled with being right a lot, especially when it came to a lot of my family members. I would say I always tend to try to prove myself that, this and that is what I believe and I want to follow my heart and I want to do this and I want to do that. And nobody really agrees with you, or sometimes people don't see eye to eye or they have a different view in life or they have a different thought, right? Based on the argument that we're having, basically. And I realized too, the same thing with me is I was just like trying to prove myself because I felt like people were trying to dumb me down. They made me think as if like the way that I thought was, or made me less of a person almost, kind of like, yeah, you're not right and you always have to be right and you just want to argue and you just want to fight, right? But the truth is that I think truly I felt so deeply and so passionately about these things that I was unconscious of the reactions that I was giving towards these family members, right?
Exactly.
So I had to be conscious of, oh my gosh, I'm reacting. I'm not responding. I'm not like I'm not consciously aware of my actions right now, and I need to calm myself down, and I need to like reflect on what I want to say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sometimes, like I said, your ego says a lot of things without realizing. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times people will say, yeah, you know, I was just heated in the moment. I didn't mean it. But at the same time, like, I think it's so important to be aware of like everything that you say, because you don't want to live with any regrets, of course, and you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings either.
Mm-hmm.
So I think with that, you know, I do understand that, because it comes honestly from our insecurities, you know,
Yes.
us wanting to be right all the time, you know, and it has nothing to do with other people, but it has everything to do with us.
A big part of your ego has to do with your self-esteem too, and your self-confidence. You know, like you put up this ego and this pride in order to feel better about yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and we care so much about, you know, the way that people think about us. Like, I feel like that's something I struggled with a lot, was I always cared what people thought of me. And like,
Yeah.
I would think to myself like, oh my gosh, no, that's not me. Like, you have to know this and that about me. And like, oh, like so and so said this and I can't believe they said that. But you know, it's like the truth is that not everybody's going to know you, and that's okay. But you just, you know, sometimes it gets to you and you're like, oh my gosh, like I just want to defend and protect myself, right? Like, I need to get my point across so that they know. But the truth is that it doesn't really matter if
They
they know.
don't need to know.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Because they don't, the truth is that they don't care, is that I care.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. So it's like, what are you trying to prove? You know,
Right.
Trying to prove to yourself, or are you trying to prove to others? That's kind of what the ego does. You know,
Exactly.
and it goes in so many different aspects. Whether it's, you know, like your personal life, your career, whatever you're trying to defend, your beliefs. There's
Yeah.
so many different aspects that we use our ego for.
Exactly. And I think I'll say, like, I've always been the type of kid who wanted to be right towards my parents. Of course, I was that kind of a person, because, like, every thought and thing that I thought to myself, like, I mean, me and my parents, we just have different views in general. But I remember thinking to myself, like, about a summer ago, and I was like, oh my gosh, we still continuously have these sort of like arguments and like disagreements. And every single time I talk to them, I'm reacting. It's not healthy. It becomes toxic. It's not like we're having a conversation, you know, because we just disagree on some things, which is totally normal. But at the same time, I actually had talked to like one of my family members, and I asked her for advice, and I said, you know, I just want to know why we keep going through the same exact cycle and it gets nowhere, you know? And she was like, you know, I'm just going to tell you, like, you won't win because your ego is so big. You know, you always want to be right. But the same thing, it's not just you, your parents too. They also want to be right. But she was like, let me tell you, take the high road and walk away. Because in those moments, all you have to say is, okay, you know, like, don't stop trying to prove yourself. Stop trying to defend and like argue and say everything that you need to get out there. You know, the truth is, like, sometimes you don't need to respond. Like, sometimes you just need to say, okay, understand, just walk away, and then just go towards, you know, your own path, whatever you need to do for yourself. But you don't need to get everybody involved, and you don't need to prove yourself to anyone.
Yeah.
And that was honestly, that advice, I took it, and it really, really helped me.
That's really good advice, because
Yes.
sometimes silence is better than, you know, arguments.
And it's so simple. You know,
Yeah.
I think we don't realize that how simple, like, just agreeing or just saying okay and then walking away is like the simplest thing that we can do. But instead, our ego wants to fight. It wants to attack. It wants to keep going at it so that we can be right and win, right? There's no winning, and that's the ego. There's no such thing as competition. There's no such thing as like winning or losing. At the end of the day, that's all in the ego, and we need to let that go so that we can kind of follow towards our higher self and our
authentic
intuition.
self. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So now, yeah, let's kind of dive into like our true self, our higher self. Can you explain a little bit more of like your definition of it, and so that our viewers kind of understand as well?
Yeah, so a little bit like I said earlier, I will say when I think of my higher self is just, yes, the best and the truest version of me. Like, and I see her almost like she's a character too. She is me. I mean, we all have our higher self is us.
Yeah.
So I think about my higher self. When I think of her, she is like very vocal. She's confident. She's somebody, like, basically I strive to be like,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, like I said, she's me, and she knows what path I'm supposed to go on. She knows where I'm supposed to be. And sometimes I try to like connect with my higher self as well. And when I do that, like I said, it's just like this like inner knowing, or this like intuition where, for me, I'm a person who follows their heart a lot. So when I follow my heart, sometimes I feel like it's coming from my higher self. And even though sometimes I make decisions, kind of based off of my ego or what my parents want or what my family wants for me, my higher self kind of pulls me away, and she's like, don't go there. That's not where you want to go. And that's why I come to these conflicts a lot. But it's about, at the same time, trying to understand what my higher self wants. Like I said, my higher self is me. And so I had to think like really deeply, like, what is the right thing for me to do? And how do I not put other people into my life and just think about, kind of like my route in life, I guess you could say.
I guess like I kind of see my higher self kind of like that too, but my higher self, I see her as someone that wants the best and the good for all. It doesn't just think about me as a person. It thinks about, okay, what can I do and contribute to help the collective too, so it benefits not only me but others around me as well. It's like this connection to like everyone else, without just like thinking about my own selfish needs. And so my higher self, like, wow, like, I do feel her a lot. I do have visions of her, of like being this person that I really strive to be too. And it's hard because, like your higher self has to tame your ego. Yeah, taming your ego and having to be the bigger person, like you said, where sometimes you will have to walk away from situations that are not really benefiting both parties, or doing certain things. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's for the best of all good.
Exactly. And I think, okay, so realizing that, right, your higher self wants the best for not just you, but for everyone, I think it kind of goes into not just like, I guess when I say this is, I feel like when you want the best for everyone collectively, of course, you have to think about that's almost every single person on this realm of the earth realm. All of their higher selves wants the best for everyone collectively, which is why your higher self will guide you into a route that will allow you to help people.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So that's why I'm saying, like, sometimes when you get into these arguments with people, or like disagreements about which path you want to go, and your higher self keeps pulling you away to choose yourself, in a sense, what I mean by this is that, you choose yourself to go into this path because it's actually going to affect more
and help
people.
multiple people.
Yes, exactly. Whereas like you do the other route where other people want that for you, and like it doesn't make you happy or fulfilled or whatever it is, then it kind of steers you into a direction where the impact is money. The impact is, of course, your ego. It's no happiness. It's no fulfillment. It's nothing.
Yes.
It's not your true self. Your true self doesn't even want that path. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's like really interesting. I guess like the more you go deeper into it, a lot of people have questions on how to segregate, or like how to like separate the two. How do I know when I'm in my ego? How do I know when I'm in my higher self? And ultimately, at the end of the day, your higher self will always want what's best for everyone, not just yourself.
Yeah.
Like, how can you be of service to humanity?
Basically.
Yeah.
And I mean, and you think about it too, it's, I guess you could say, like, a lot of people, they haven't reached that sort of consciousness of like serving the world or serving humanity, or like just serving their community. But at the same time, I do think that people serve in different ways as well.
Yeah.
Even if that is just your own families or your friends or whatever it is. But
Yeah.
I mean, then again, like I said, everybody has their own purpose. And I think the way to differentiate the two is to know where your intuition wants you to go. You have to think, like, people don't like to think with their heart, because it takes them away from
being logical and
Yes.
doing like the practical ways of doing stuff. Yes.
It makes them feel safe when they can, stay in the practical side of things. Because if they follow their heart, then it's like risky, it's scary, it's all over the place. It's chaotic. And a lot of people steer away that way just because, of course, they want to be stable and they want to just be, I guess, more in the norm of society. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Because that's what they teach you, and that's all you ever know and you grow up with.
Exactly. So I think now I do kind of see a shift too, where it's like the collective consciousness is now starting to follow more of their intuition. But like I said, everybody has, I guess, their own timing, and
Yeah.
everybody awakens differently too. And everyone has their own authentic, true purpose. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I think for a long time I was like contemplating, okay, what is the true purpose here and like why am I here? But ultimately, like if you ever get lost, this is what I heard. If you ever get lost, your purpose is to just spread love and be of service to others and give back and, you know, do good here.
Yeah, for
If you
sure.
ever get lost. And that can go many ways. People can give back in ways of volunteering, helping their communities, or even helping their families, like you said, or healing your lineage, spreading love on just like the daily basis. And, that's kind of how you incorporate that into your daily life too.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
They always say like your talent and what you love is your purpose. But kind of like moving forward too, and to connect all of these things, I think one thing I wanted to speak a lot about was my career, because in my journey with my career, it had a lot to do with a sort of like ego at first as well, which we do talk about in the previous episodes. But basically, I was thinking a lot about how, of course, like when I told myself that I was going to be like a mechanical engineer and just get through school and like, you can make a lot of money and you can be stable and everything. Of course, like I understand the practicality of that. But at the same time, I've always been a sort of person too where I was never really afraid of money, or I never really like
Fear not being stable.
yeah, I never feared too much about like the stability aspect, but at the same time it was also me not caring about the paper in general. Like I didn't care too much about the material stuff. But at the same time, like I said, I knew that it was important because we honestly need it to survive, right?
Yeah,
But like I
exactly.
said, that's kind of my ego talking again. But at the same time,
Yeah.
that's just the reality. It's duality of this earth realm. But I will say too, I guess just not having like the drive for like, oh, I want to make the most money in the world. Like I want to make the most money out of my family, my friends, and everybody. I didn't have that sort of mindset. Like I never thought about that. But the truth is that a lot of like our family members, right, our cousins, uncles, aunties, like just like having this, I guess, crowd of people who are kind of rooting for you to be the best thing out there, right? Like a technician, like IT person, like engineering,
having the highest
doctors.
status possible, the highest
Yes.
paying job. Like that's what they push you to do. That's the American dream.
Your reputation.
Yeah.
I mean, the way that other families view your family, especially in our community. Like, I feel like, yes, we don't talk about this either, is that a lot of like parents or people, right, they want to use their child as sort of like a leverage in a sense. Like,
Yes.
oh, yeah, like my daughter or my son is like this, and they are like the best thing ever. You know what I mean?
Because it gives them a better reputation too.
Exactly. And that is coming from the ego, is the pride. You have
Yes.
someone or something to pride on. And that goes not just for like parents having a child to pride on, but the child also having something to pride on. But at the same time, you don't even know if that's like what they wanted to do, or like if they're happy with it. Of course, like people in the logical state of mind, they don't really care about happiness, or like what the heck even is that? Like I just go to work, make money, and then I get to do what I want to do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is true in a sense, and that is the more like societal norm. But I will say, switching over to marketing and then being in the business corporate field, that wasn't really my interest as well, because I realized a lot of the people that worked in the field, of course, of business and corporate, of course, they're extremely logical. They are extremely like, they want the highest management position.
Yeah.
They want,
it's all about moving up the ranks.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's basically what it is.
Yeah.
And that is amazing for those who are out there working in those fields and actually getting those promotions and working super hard, because that's based, of course, like in your personality too, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly. It's like what you want for yourself, and it's
Right.
what brings you fulfillment.
And I'm not saying that business or corporations are egotistic, but what I'm saying, you know, in a sense, of course, like once you hit a higher management, you are affecting the lives of other people. It's based,
Yes.
like I said, everybody has their own sort of purpose. But at the same time, I realized that, okay, I can't really do this either, because it's not fulfilling to me. Like you
Yeah.
see those people, they're so passionate. It's
They love
amazing.
what they do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I see that, I'm like, oh my gosh, like you are so passionate about, like, for example, like this light in this room. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like whatever it
Yeah.
is. And like
Yeah.
the way that it's built, and like you have these things that you want to build so that you can give it to people, or like whatever it is, right? Which is amazing that we have people like that, right?
Yeah.
But I realized too, like moving forward, I was like, okay, no, I need to figure out my own personality, my own calling. Who am I and where do I thrive?
Yeah.
And over the times, you know, I realized that I have so many family members or friends or people that I've come across who feel very safe or comfortable in my presence. And I love that, because I'm a very vulnerable person too. It's not hard for me to share, and it's not hard for me to like communicate with people.
Yeah.
So I love that I bring this like sort of comfortability. But, you know, I realized that, okay, I need to go into a field that's going to like basically make my strengths show, basically.
Exactly. You should be in a place where you're utilizing your strengths and your talents and your skills.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so moving over to like the holistic health field, and also knowing that this field was still up and coming and nobody really knew what holistic medicine was, or natural healing, or Reiki, or any of these like modalities that were out there. A lot of people didn't even know it at the time, you know, and still till this day, I'll say it's still kind of up and coming as well. But I just knew, and I told myself that, okay, I need to just follow my heart. You know, this is where I want to go. And you know who was helping me? My higher self. My higher self was like, yes, like literally just cheering for me. Like she is like so happy, because she saw that I struggled all this time
Yeah.
trying to figure this out.
I guess like a big part of it too is like your higher self does guide you in like a certain direction, but how do you know exactly what it is that your higher self wants you to do?
It's interesting, because I have had people ask me this before, and I always say, I'm like, gosh, it's like just like an inner knowing. It's your intuition. Like I can't explain it, because the truth is that when I talk about it, I get so passionate about it. Like, for example, right? I was in marketing, or even you could take engineering. Do you see me being super passionate about that? Like when
get
I
it.
speak about it?
Yeah.
You know, I go to work, come home, I don't want to talk about work. You know what I mean? But when I get into like this holistic health field, and people ask me like, what's holistic health? And like, how can I, you know, benefit from this? Oh my gosh, I could go on and I can speak for hours to people and telling them exactly what they need to do or what they need to know about this field, you know?
Yeah.
And that's how I know, because I'm like, wow, I could go on about this and I love this. I'm passionate about it. And, you know, I see that the literally like out in the real world, there's actual people
Yeah.
doing this work. I'm like, this is exactly where I'm meant to be. And that's where my higher self was like, you know, of course, Paris, there's so much fulfillment here.
Yeah. And I think a big part too is like when your higher self leads you in a direction that is kind of not too like big yet, kind of like holistic health, right? Where, oh yeah, like you have a lot of passion, a lot of interest there, a lot of spark. How do you like let go of your ego in the terms of like that stability and that financial like income that comes with having like a stable job versus, you know, going towards your passions where like, oh, you don't have like that guarantee of even getting a job, you don't even have the guarantee of making money, but you're doing
Yeah.
something you enjoy. So how do you like go about that? How do you overcome that?
I love that, because trust.
Yeah.
That's it. You know, I think people don't realize how strong trust, belief, and faith is. Because sometimes I think about it like, oh my gosh, you know, I was jobless for about 3 months after my internship over the summer, and I was like, you know, I don't know why, but I'm not worried. And then for some reason, I got $3,000 in my bank account. Like, I'm not even joking.
Yeah.
And you know, to be honest, I was like, thank you, God. Like, thank you, universe. Thank you so much, because I was so depressed.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was able to like sustain myself. And I mean, of course, I saved money on the side when I was working too, but you know, that's just what I'm saying is like sometimes like
It's
God,
crazy how like the universe works. Like,
yes.
it just being an abundant person and trusting in the universe and having faith. Sometimes that does happen, okay? Where like money just comes out of nowhere and you're like, wow, like where did this come from? Thank you, Lord. Thank you, God. Thank you, universe. But you just have to be grateful for it because they see you struggling. They see you struggling, but they know that you're going towards the path that you're meant to.
Yeah, it's so true. And I mean, I can't even express it. I know if I told this story to people, they'd be like...
They would think you're crazy. They would probably laugh, which it is pretty crazy too.
Yeah.
Even to us, like when these things happen to us, we're like, what? Like, how did that just happen?
Yeah.
Right? But it's like, okay, well, thank you. I'm just going to like take it and not question it and
Of course,
accept it.
yes. And, you know, I do want to tell this quick story too. During the 3 months when I was jobless, actually before that, the universe also gifted me a job offer.
Yeah.
And this was the whole ultimate test of my ego and my higher self. Like, this story was everything for my higher self right here. And it's a story that I'll go back and tell people all the time. But I had this job offer, and it was, you know, in marketing in the field. It's kind of like writing too, a little bit political too. And, you know, at the same time, I was like, okay, like I could do this and it's okay. But at the same time, I don't know. I was like, I just want to get a job. I was in the mindset of, I want to get a job. I don't want to be jobless. I want to be stable. I want to make sure that I'm making money, right? So then I get this job and they're like, hey, like we want you. We want to hire you. Will you accept this position? Right away, I said, yes, I'll accept the position. And then, you know, later I went to my internship supervisor. I went over to her and I said, hey, guess what? Like, I actually got a job, like a job offer. And she was like, really? Like, congratulations. Like, you should celebrate. And I was like, oh, I guess I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Like, and my mindset was just kind of like, yeah, I got a job. That was it. And the crazy thing was, of course, it was paying like a higher amount and it was a good staple job for me. But, you know, I feel like when I was looking at, and of course I get it, like I'm kind of picky about like certain job titles, or not titles, but the description of what you're going to be doing.
Yeah.
I realized that, okay, what am I doing? I'm kind of going backwards again, right?
It's not really the point where you want to go into.
Yeah, which, don't get me wrong, I was proud that I got the job and I was happy about it, and I'm pretty sure that that job would have made me successful either way. But at the same time, I was like, yeah, I'm not really like celebratory about it. Now I'm kind of getting second thoughts about it. I don't know why, you know, like I'm like, my gut is like feeling weird. Yeah. I don't
usually that's already a sign that, you know, it's not something that will bring you fulfillment. If it doesn't even bring excitement for you to find out that you got the job, that's saying a lot already.
Yes. And that's what I was saying is when I started calling people and telling them like, hey, I got a job, like, you know, and they're like, oh my God, like, let's celebrate.
I remember that. I was like, yeah, let's go out to eat, celebrate. And you're like, actually, I don't really want to.
Yeah.
Like, what? You should be proud of that.
Right.
Yeah.
And you did say that. And a lot of people were like, yeah, be proud of yourself. And like, you should be happy. And like, this is a good paying job. And it's a good start and whatever. And I was just thinking like, yeah, no, that's definitely true. Like in all aspects, it's a good paying job. But at the same time, I know I was like, I think I'm going to sound really dumb, but I don't want to take the job anymore. And it literally took a toll on me because I did accept it, but you know, I didn't tell anybody this. I just did it. I called back and I was like, hey, actually, you know, something, I don't know, blah, 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 whatever came up. And I realized that, you know, I don't think I'm going to accept this position anymore.
Yeah.
And of course, like this was something that had affected a lot of my family members because they just wanted the best for me, of course. But at the same time, maybe it was the right or the wrong decision. I don't know. But I spoke with, one of my cousins, and she was like, I'm not going to tell you what the right choice is, but I know that you do know within already. Like, you do know what it is, but you don't need me to tell you.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And she was like, just know that you always talk to me about holistic health, and you never talk about like business or whatever it is that you're doing, like this stuff, like corporation stuff. And she was like, and I just see that in your life, you're meant to help and be around people, and you're not meant to be around like a computer screen,
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I wouldn't mind. Like, I kept trying to convince myself. I was like, I wouldn't mind, but I think that is true, is I want to start steering my life and my direction into the way that I already made it go, which was that I went to school for holistic health so that I could find a job in the field, and so I could switch over from business to healthcare, or solely move into business within healthcare. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was like something that I had to think about, and it was a big decision. I had to face one of my deepest shadows, which was to face, of course, my mom and dad, and the way that they wanted my life to go. And because for my parents, what they love, of course, and they honor stability and foundation, and they just want me to be, of course, stable. I understand. But at the same time, well, for them, it was like almost like kind of living in this fear mode. Whereas for me, I was kind of living in a, okay, I just have to trust mode.
And that's really good when you're able to live in your heart and follow your intuition, despite what other people say, like, oh, yeah, like, that's a good job to take, take it. But then you listen to your heart, your intuition, your higher self, and you're led towards a path that people think you're completely crazy in doing.
And that's what I'm saying, is like holistic health not being big or in demand. I understand. But I was like, one day I don't want to miss out on this opportunity. Like, in the future, we're going to need these people, and I want to be one of them, And on top of that, I think my higher self was like, hey, Paris, you're going to benefit so many more people when you go into this route. You're going to help so much people when you go into holistic health, even though it might not make the most amount of money right now, But just know that the reason why it's not going to make a lot of money is because, of course, it is almost like working in the field of like people volunteer work, or like like kind of like, if we want to start our own business like this or something, But at the same time, you just kind of have to be mindful. You, at the end of the day, you get to pick your poison, right? Do you love fulfillment? Do you love money?
Yeah, I think that's a really hard thing, because like, especially like for me, like growing up, being raised and programmed that way, of living in a state of like, I need financial stability, I need to have my stuff together, I need to be stable so that I can provide for not only myself but my family and those around me. That was a big thing that I had to like face, like even right now, I'm still currently going through like this phase of, okay, like I have this plan made out for myself, and I know what I want to do going forward in order to transition. But like a big part of it is the universe testing me. And, I'm in my career right now where it's really good for me, actually. Like, I have a lot of blessings, and I'm very abundant in my career and finances. But, like, does that bring me fulfillment? The money does. But like the work that I do doesn't really bring that spark or passion. And so I told myself, I'm going to like create this plan for myself, and by this time I will be able to transition out.
Yeah.
But then the universe tests me by giving me promotions and giving me like these bonuses and these raises that just tempts me to stay longer. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people feel this way too, that are in like places that they don't really want to be in, but it brings money, because money is kind of like it, like I said in the previous episodes, money was a drive for me. I was willing to do anything just to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I guess I kind of appreciate how you were able to, let, that offer go and like listen to your higher self, because that kind of inspires me. Okay, like despite these temptations of being able to make more money, getting promotions, I know I might be crazy, but I know I need to follow my heart and go towards something that will bring me fulfillment in life.
It's such a risk, but and I will say too, like, just because I did that didn't mean that I didn't have hard times either.
Yeah.
I definitely did have some rough times with, my relationship with my parents, my relationship with my finances, my relationship with my career, my mindset, my mental health, everything played a role. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like, I'm never going to be like good. I'm never going to find anything. I'm never going to be, where I want to be or whatever it is. And like I said, when you walk with trust, you have to really walk with it, because I have noticed, like, since the last time when that happened, which was a few months back, I have seen so many doors open for me, but it took so much patience too. And at the same time, I'm still walking the journey out. I'm still seeing all the doors open. And I think, like I said, you close one door, a lot of them will open. And it was a test for me, not just for me to let go of my ego, but for me to let go of what I cared about, other people's opinions of me, basically. Like, let go of those, like, thoughts that don't even serve me,
Yeah.
And also trying to be the best person for my parents, or my family. Like, being the best or the most educated, the most money person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think the ego for me was like me deciding between money or my own personal well-being. Because a lot of my work already had to do with like kind of getting burnt out with working overtime, even though I wasn't even at a position that needed to be, working that much. But, with a promotion only comes more responsibilities and duties too.
Yeah.
Which eventually would lead to more like exhaustion, especially being in a field where like you're not even really passionate about it. It's kind of hard to even do the work, and working overtime. But for me, I'm such a hard worker that even though it didn't bring me like this spark, I still like go 100% or even more for what I do. So that's why I'm like, oh yeah, it's so tempting to just take the money, right?
Right.
But, I think I'm learning to, like you said, live in my heart and go towards, the best decision for me.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said, that comes from your higher self. So listen to your higher self. And I will say, my higher self, I'm not perfect for my higher self. She is probably like, you don't listen as much as you think you do, and you make a lot of the wrong choices. And it took you forever to get there. But, it's just the way life goes. We have to learn how to let go or kill our ego and just live in love and grace, and don't argue, don't fight back, don't react. That's how you're going to start conflict. And this is where we kind of struggle in relationships.
Yeah. At the end of the day, just do what makes you happy and feel fulfilled.
Exactly.
Whether it's going towards your passions or, yeah, that's usually what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right. Well, thank you so much if you made it this far. We are so happy that you listened all the way. Like our episodes do end up like taking like quite a while. And yeah, thank you so much. Like, subscribe, and follow. And comment down below if you made it this far. If you did, you're a real one. Comment safe haven.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Love y'all.
Love you.